My brain membrane ruptured and I had cerebral spinal fluid flowing out. I must be prepared to face the end of my life.
Do you think BTSS can make an impact?
There is no time for regrets. Let them know that we are always here.
Is brain tumor necessary a death sentence? Hi everyone! Our brain plays a critical role in our everyday lives. Can you imagine how is it like if our brain falls ill? Can we still make conversations, move our limbs around? To answer these questions, today we are very privileged to have Melissa Lim,
Hi!
the president and founder of BTSS, Brain Tumour Society Singapore, to answer this for us.
Well, BTSS stands for Brain Tumour Society Singapore. It's a one-stop center for brain tumor patients and caregivers. What do I mean by one-stop? We try to provide everything that they need from the journey with brain tumors, from the point of diagnosis to the point where they are receiving active treatment, to when they are in remission, and finally at the end stage of life care. So we try not to be like, you've got to go to this agency for that. No, we try to be the one-stop center for brain tumors. And why it started it was because of two critical incidents in my life. One, when I was a caregiver to my mother who had brain cancer. And 6 years later, after she's passed away, I was diagnosed to be having a brain tumor, although a very different one from my mom. And because brain tumor is such a rare condition, it's just not possible for you to just bump into someone who has had an encounter or even know someone who's got brain tumor. I found that it was very isolating when I was caring for my mom, whilst I was also recovering as a brain tumor patient. Yeah, and that's I thought that it would be very meaningful because these were two very dark and painful episodes in my life that I wanted to forget. And I wanted to make sense of what happened to me when I was in my 30s. And when people were catching up with their careers, I was just struggling with life and death situations. So I felt that it would be very, very meaningful if I used my lived-in experience to be a befriender to people who are also walking this journey, to be that person that wasn't there when I was walking my journeys with my mother and myself as a patient. I remembered when I was given the diagnosis of brain tumor at the radiologist's office, I actually couldn't even accept it.
How did the doctor say?
Said, Miss Lin, you ready? Can you sit down? I need to share something with you.
They might be very scared for them
something
too,
like
right?
that.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, what? I have to, I have to go, what? And then he says, I just want to let you know you got a brain tumor. Like,
Just like that.
just like that. Yeah, like, excuse me, I got to go for lunch. Yeah, exactly. I said, sorry, I got to go for lunch. I actually said that. I'm sorry, I got to go for lunch. And I went.
Oh.
And I had lunch because I couldn't accept it.
Okay.
I saw how my mother died of brain cancer, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. Then throughout lunch, it was at the back of my mind, but I acted as if like nothing was wrong. And it was during dessert that some good sense kicked in.
Oh.
And it was like, remember, there are many kinds of brain tumor. Maybe yours is not as bad as mom's.
Positive thinking.
Yeah,
It's good.
Yeah. So,
Dessert helps.
Yeah, dessert, okay.
Makes you
happy.
Yes.
How did you juggle back then? You were like 30s?
Yes, I was in my 30s and my kids were very, very young. And of course, during that whole stage when I was in my 30s, my mom fell terminally ill. And it was so difficult in the caregiving because my siblings were also looking after the young families. And suddenly you have a mom who is very, very ill. And I had to hire two helpers for her and juggle looking after my own family with my mom's family. And it was very tough. So eventually when I was diagnosed, my kids were like seeing me in the hospital for 1 whole month. And I think it affected them too, because they asked me questions like, Mommy, where do people go when they die?
Oh no.
And
it's like a bit hard for you, right? Because you're
it's
literally
very hard,
facing.
because they saw what happened to grandma,
Mhm.
and then suddenly the mom is in hospital.
Mhm.
Or, Mommy, I have a headache, how do I know it's brain tumor? That kind of thing. And they were very young, like 4 years old, 6 years old, and that's where you realize that it has affected the family, not just logistically, but in a deeply psychological way.
So with the forming of BTSS, what do you hope to see change?
I think, first of all, the message is to people who have been diagnosed with brain tumor that you do not have to journey this alone. There is someone else who has gone through it, who understands. They have beat the disease, they have survived, and they are the community, BTSS, and we are right here for you.
I think you started this also as something, this is not your full-time.
No, this is really my
Occupation, right?
passion, my passion mission. Yeah, and in fact, I've never been paid a single cent. But I keep going because I just feel that it's a privilege given to me to lay the foundation for this legacy work for my life. And also it's work that's transformed the lives of so many people. And it's also work that's transformed the landscape, the healthcare landscape in Singapore. So it is definitely the most meaningful thing I've done in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, it takes, I think also a lot of courage, right? Yeah, because you've been through your own set of, also trauma. A mom, and then yourself, and then to want to still, continue, these experiences with other members with brain tumor is very remarkable.
Well, I think this giving back is called wounded healers.
Wonder healers.
Yes, that's right. And many times I'm very encouraged by what I see in the community. People who know that they don't have the odds on their side. We know that they will leave soon. But you see the courage with which they live their lives. There is no time for regrets. There is no time for moping. There's just time to do more, to love more, to give more, and to live better. So I have this privilege of being, in touch with these people, and I learned that this is how you live your life. And most importantly, this is how you die. Because every one of us got to figure out how you're going to die. It's not just how you're going to live. Every day we are one day closer to our bye-bye.
So how has BTSS enriched you personally?
Wow, that's a question that's not easy to answer, because it has enriched my life in so many aspects. Firstly, being with BTSS and leading BTSS and living with brain tumor patients who are so courageous and so brave has taught me how to live life. Yeah, to face it with courage, right? And also being involved in BTSS, of course, saw me going through very tough times, and it has taught me as well to have faith and never be afraid to dream. I never thought that out of a brain tumor, I would one day found BTSS and be leading and advocating for brain tumor awareness. I never thought when I was a patient trying to just overcome the complications that I had. I didn't know that it was possible, but it became possible for me. And BTSS also taught me that how I must be prepared to face the end of my life. When people around me that I care about, and when they fall, it's another reminder that I'm not going to be immune to this. I'm going to face this one day. And what if I'm told again that you've got a relapse? What are you going to do? Will you have courage? So I'm sort of like prepared, that I would come to this one day in my life. I cannot assume that, I will be well, I would be strong forever. So it's taught me to also prepare for the end stage of my life.
So you mentioned that it's a rare disease, right? Brain tumor. So there wasn't much support?
Well, brain tumor is rare because I believe, according to statistics, fewer than 5 out of 10,000 people have it, right? So it's not like, I know somebody who has breast cancer or prostate cancer. It's not like that. It's like, do you know somebody who has a brain tumor? Well, chances are the answer is going to be no, and that's what is meant by rare. Because it's rare, you find that naturally there would be fewer people who are survivors of brain tumor around in the community. And how many of them would actually start organizations or peer support group? I think most of them would follow my first instinct, is try to forget this episode. Like I wanted to forget this whole thing with my mom, how she had to suffer brain cancer. And that's a very natural response, you see.
How are we supposed to know if we have a BT?
So what are some of the symptoms of brain tumor? Unfortunately, they present themselves as very general symptoms, such as headaches, for example, and maybe sometimes deteriorating eyesight, or maybe little bit of sound that you hear in your inner ear, which is also quite commonplace, isn't it? So it's really hard to tell, and because of it, it's one of the challenges in diagnosing brain tumors. Yeah. So the answer would be, if it's very persistent, then definitely you need to get it checked. If the headaches keep coming and they are not, they are very deep, and you can feel that it's really preventing you from functioning well, then you should go for checks. And if you have sudden weakness or the vision deteriorates quite quickly, then you should check. But the reality is that most doctors will not send you straight away to the MRI.
That's right.
They would, try to give you a first level kind of a treatment, tell you to rest more. But if you find that despite it and it's still persisting, then you should ask for a reason, a deeper diagnosis. Yeah.
Mentioned that when you were doing a caregiver for your mom, you were not having much support back then. So when you were the patient yourself, who were your supporters for this?
Yes, obviously my family was there for me, but they couldn't answer a lot of questions I had, like the facial palsy I had. Was it temporal? The double vision. And then I had so many questions, and even though my family members were there for me, they couldn't answer these questions. And I found that the greatest support actually came from my nurses. When I was in Ward 52B of Singapore General Hospital.
You can remember
for a
everything.
month.
Wow.
Yes, I will never forget. And I had this facial palsy, and I even had a complication. My brain membrane ruptured, and I had cerebral spinal fluid flowing out.
After this?
Yes,
No,
after the
because it was
surgery. It was a
swelling.
complication.
Yeah, it was so
So, I had to go to very painful procedures like a lumbar puncture. And in constant headaches, I couldn't heal, and I was so discouraged. But the nurses told me that there were many people who did this procedure and they thrived. They told me, don't give up, because you don't have that kind of aggressive glioma. You can beat this. You can do it. So they told me, and then when I have this facial palsy also, and then the nurses were telling me, I also know there's another, person who also like you, like that, but she's very well now, she looks really great.
They're giving you hope.
Yes, then I realized that these stories of how people fought this was so important, because it gave me hope, like what you said. If it can happen to them, if they can do it, why can't I? So, so that's one of the reasons why I was so inspired that when I get out of this, and because there's no peer support in Singapore, let me be the person who tell this other person that it's okay. So I made known my aspiration to the nurses. And then what happened was that, a few weeks later, when I got discharged and it was better, and then they'll call me and say, Melissa, there's this patient, she's going for surgery, and then she's very scared. Or there's another patient who's the same as you. Can you come down? So I would be like a Florence Nightingale. And I would go down and say, hello.
It's gonna be
yeah.
okay.
And then she said, then they would look at me and they say that, what happened to you? I said, oh, I had a surgery like you and my face was like yours. Oh, wow, you're so cantik now. I said, yeah, and you can be too. Really? Yeah, you see? So it is this life testimony that yes, I can get well and so can you. So I found this so powerful, you see. Yeah, so that's one of the small steps that I took. And then eventually people told me, advised me that if you really want to make an impact, you got to start something like an official organization. And it was true because the little group of patients and caregivers that I had became smaller and smaller because unfortunately for some of them, they had aggressive brain cancer and they passed away, you see. So I decided that to take this leap of faith with the encouragement of the community around to start BTSS with some of them.
So it's been 11th year.
Yes, it's been.
How has it been changed? I mean, like when you first start this society, right? When people don't even know about it, how can they give you that support until the 11th year that you have it? How has it been so far?
They, as doctors, could feel that the patients and their families are going through very difficult times. But as doctors, they cannot step beyond the professional boundaries to be, a befriender in these tough times. So they saw the gap, and when they saw that BTSS was established, they all actually came to support. Then, I remember in my early days, we started the support group. There were even months when nobody turned up at all. Because nobody knew about us.
How early was that, the support group?
At the beginning, we started with the support group. So it's the second Saturday of every month, happening for 11 years already. But in the first year, there are certain months where nobody would turn up at the support group at all. But I just said, we just keep going. Let them know that we are always here every Saturday, second Saturday in the mornings. And gradually, this stuck, you see. And right now, our support group is always attended by someone at least. And we usually have a newly diagnosed patient or caregiver in our midst.
So it's almost like now after 11 years, BTS is like a constant presence, like a constant friend, right?
Yes. So that's one thing we managed to establish. That peer community is really very important. And it's not just a support group. We also, as you know, in brain tumor, we have many different types, different subtypes. So in fact, there are 130 different kinds of brain tumors. And each brain tumor could be presenting very different symptoms for the patients, you see. Like for example, those with the pituitary gland tumors, they tend to struggle with hormonal issues. So they'll be talking about like, I need thyroxine, I need cortisol, this and that. And people like me with the acoustic neuroma don't really know what they're talking about because I'm dealing with balance and stuff like that. So I found that initially when I started, it was like one size fit all, regardless of tumor type, you all come in. But I soon discovered that they have very different concerns. Some of them are fighting aggressive cancers. So, of course, the one with the low-grade tumor, yeah, I'm getting better. But those who are fighting aggressive cancer, they don't like to hear that because they are dealing with end-stage matters. So I decided to start subgroups when I had more and more joining the community. So within the subgroups itself, they'll be talking about their specific issues. So it becomes a little bit more targeted and more meaningful.
Like a support system of the same clusters.
Correct. But the support group is for everyone. Then along the way, they have the subgroups, and then that's where they chat with each other.
How long do you intend to continue this work that you're doing?
Well, I have to know, like, everyone else in BTSS, that we all have an expiry date. So to make sure that this work continues even when I'm long gone, I am actually taking this very seriously, looking for successors, trying to find what is the succession planning for BTSS. Because as much as I like to, the spirit is willing, but the flesh will give out one day. So yeah, so that's basically, I will do it as long as I can. But I need to plan in the event that, I no longer can be a leader. We need succession.
Okay, Melissa, we also have some myths or facts about brain tumor that we want to ask you. Okay, the first question is BT hereditary?
No, there's no proven science that tells you that it's definitely hereditary. Maybe there's a possibility, but there are a myriad of factors that can lead to brain tumors.
When you had it, right? Were you thinking like, oh, my mom had it, I have it, maybe my descendant will have it?
Yes, I definitely did think about it. But again, it was pointed out to me that what my mom had was a high-grade glioma, whereas mine was a very different kind of brain tumor. So you can see that already at the molecular level, they're very different. Yes.
Is brain tumor necessary a death sentence?
It depends. But there is always a possibility, even with the most aggressive form of brain cancer, there are people who beat the odds, And most people with glioblastoma multiforme, or GBM for short, they have a prognosis of 2 years. But there are those that I know of personally who have actually beat 10 years survival mark. Yeah, so never lose hope.
Do handphones cause brain tumor?
Okay.
I'm using one now.
I think there is no concrete or very, very clear evidence yet, although some studies have suggested that there might be an impact. But personally for myself, I find that I'm really very sensitive to the heat, and then the energy that's coming through the phones to my ears, and I find my nerves getting heated up. So a few of patients in my community also report the same thing, but there are also those who said that they are not affected. So I really don't know the answer to that, but as a precaution, my phones are off every time I sleep at night.
Okay, that's something I must remember to do. Okay, and if you have brain tumor, right, is surgery the only option to remove it?
It depends on the size of the brain tumors. If the tumor is really very, very small, like generally, I believe the guidelines is, if the tumor is less than 2.5 cm, then they would prefer something like radiotherapy or even maybe chemotherapy to help the tumor resolve by itself. Because invasive neurosurgery always carries with it a lot of risks. So it's something to be avoided. So in my case, the tumor was definitely more than 2.5, and it necessitates what we call a procedure that's called craniotomy. That's open head neurosurgery.
Does brain tumor changes a person's personality or create other types of mental illness?
Brain tumors may change a person's personality depending on where it's located. And brain tumor patients do not have mental illness. I believe I'm very sane.
But it
Right?
may affect them, like fear and everything else, right? The
Yes,
moment they
it
know
may.
about
It may give rise to certain, let's say, emotionally. So brain tumors affect people in many ways. It could be, number one, cognitively. In other words, certain parts of the executive functioning may be a little bit affected. It also could affect, like for example, memory is another example of cognitive effects, isn't it? But it also can change the personality of a person 180 degrees.
They become
We've seen that.
angry.
Yes, they become very different from what they used to be. And it can't be helped because of the way it's growing at that particular part of the brain. And then it can also affect a person physically. For example, their mobility, and then maybe they used to be they have the best ball sense, but maybe it's changed because of brain tumors, right? Yeah, so and the energy level as well, definitely.
And if I have to remove part of my brain, if I have brain tumor, even if I'm cured, like that tumor has been removed, does it mean that I'm like a little bit disabled or less than 100%? I mean, maybe speaking from personal experience also.
Yes. Medical science has advanced to the point where when they need to do a resection, they would actually monitor you very, very closely. And it's done at such a micro level, you know what I mean? So to put it very simply, for example, when I was doing my neurosurgery, they couldn't just like in the primitive days, you know, they knock a hole and then they put the finger in the ear and that's how they dig out the acoustic neuroma. But
That's
in
the
my
olden days.
case, that's the olden days.
Yeah,
But
that's
in
the
my
olden
case, every nerve that was in the vicinity of the tumor was wired up. So that when the doctors get to the tumor, they will be digging it. And when it's very close to the nerve, the alarm bells will ring. So they know, you see.
Wow.
So medicine has actually progressed to this stage where they protect all your critical nervous systems, you know. And they also understand, like for example, if I was doing awake craniotomy, like awake surgery,
Was it
that's
the one
even
that
more
you are
advanced.
still
What is
awake?
that?
Yes, you're still
You
awake.
can hear everything?
Yes, you can. Yeah, but that is the latest. Why? Personally, I wish I went for that as well, because what happened was that I have a facial palsy now, you see. So if I was in awake surgery and I was speaking to the doctor and suddenly the doctor hears that my speech is slurred because of the movement of my mouth, he knows.
So it's like a
Whereas
live
if I'm
feedback.
totally asleep, he just goes digging, he doesn't know. You know what I mean? So awake craniotomy is just about the most accurate kind of resection that one can do right now. So you have people who plays the violin.
They do it, right?
Yes. And it's not that you are fully awake. You would be like sedated. And then to the point when they need you, because they're going to that part where the tumor is, they wake you up. And then they will interact with you. It could be you playing the violin or whatever, or talking or something like that, or counting backwards, anything. And then after that, when they are done with that dangerous part, where they try to navigate this territory more accurately with your help, then they will just let you sleep completely and they'll carry on. Yeah.
Do you think, you know, BTSS can make an impact?
As the president, I have the confidence and I have the vision. We must make an impact. And the fundraising, of course, is going towards my second decade, the 10 years legacy, the next 10 years legacy. Because we don't just want to be sharing knowledge and experience. We want to hire that qualifiedness to go into the house of the newly discharged brain tumor patient and help them practically. It will bring that value in a very different way, you see. Yes. So this means that the contribution that BTSS made would definitely be even more significant.
But I think like just a few takeaways is there's BTSS providing the community support, of course all the good work that you intend to do in the future. But I think also for everyone out there, right? This is real. We may not have enough information, knowledge on ourselves or just on Google, but you know, through the support that you give. And then do get ourselves checked as well. You know, if you know at once lah. If
Don't
we
rely
don't
too
feel
much
good.
on Panadol.
Yeah. So thank you once again, Melissa Lim, for joining us on today's episode. We have come to the end of today's episode of Source. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you at the next one. Bye.